Cool. Mm.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Catholic ReCon Testimonies from Reverts and Converts. I'm your host, Eddie Trask, and this week's guest is Joseph Dinesh. If you've not seen this man's channel, it's JD Catholic Engage. I came across it a few weeks ago. I was just telling Joseph before we started recording, came across it, was very impressed, ended up on another YouTube channel that was talking about his testimony, and I said I got to reach out to him. So it's a real privilege to see you here, Joseph, and thank you for
Thank you.
being
Same
on the
here. Yeah.
program. Yeah,
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for inviting me.
appreciate that. All right. Well, Joseph, like I told you, I listened to
Mm.
about a minute of your
Mm.
testimony, maybe 2 minutes.
Mm.
And I said, okay, this is fantastic. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to let him tell me and I bet the vast majority of the audience that's going to see this may not have seen
Yeah.
that you did on, what was the channel? Was that Shalom TV?
Shalom world. So yeah, so they got in touch with me to share my overall life journey. And I always thought, being a Protestant and then becoming a Catholic was the most, prominent aspect of my life. But they wanted to focus on, my journey with pornography addiction and how I came out of it. So I think that interview was mainly focused on that.
You bet. Okay. Well, why don't we start from the beginning? Were you raised Protestant, raised in a church?
No, so I actually come from a third generation Catholic family, Eddie. So I come from India. So my parents actually got converted because of the evangelization efforts of the Britishers when they were in India. So my grandfather was actually a Protestant. It so happened that in the village that he was living in, the only church that was available to them was actually a Catholic church. So when he had his children, he just kind of, assumed, okay, this is also another, church. So then he baptized them Catholic, and that is how I am a Catholic today. So I was born Catholic, but then eventually my formation was not that great because we are just like, my father was just a second generation Catholic. And also my parents did not have a good marriage. So which means the faith formation or character formation was just not there for me as I was growing up as a child. And I actually had the first encounter with God when I joined a Protestant college to do my engineering studies. And, it is, God works in mysterious ways, right? So my first encounter was in a Protestant college. Little did my Protestant friends think that I would, grow up to be this Catholic YouTuber, and they're all going crazy now seeing my channel. Oh, we have to get this guy. He's talking all those things. So yeah, so that's, in short, like I was raised in India. And as I said, right now I am in Sydney, Australia with my wife after marriage.
Excellent. Okay, so you end up in college. Okay, so who was someone actively evangelizing, trying to get you into a Bible study? How did that develop? And did you immediately, I'm always curious about college years, did you immediately think, well, this is quite different than anything I'm familiar with on the Catholic side?
Mm. So even though I said my Catholic upbringing was not that great, I still had these, small devotions. I used to say my rosary, and we used to go to this pilgrim center that is very famous in India called Velankani. So every year my parents used to take me. So I had these, glimmers of, what the faith actually looked like. But once I went to this Protestant college, this is run by, like, you've heard about Billy Graham, who's like, one of the greatest evangelists in America. So there is one person in India who's called Joseph Dinesh, who is like a very well-known Protestant evangelist. And so he started this college. So everybody who comes to this college are coming from, pastors, family, like people who are really passionate about their Christian faith. So even though it's called an engineering college, most of them are very passionate about their, faith. So all my friends were like, Protestants. They were talented in music. Some were good in preaching. So it just happened that I started going with them for the prayer groups that used to happen often in the college campus. So initially, since my exposure to the Catholic faith was not that great, the only idea that I had about the Catholic faith was, of course, the Holy Mass. But then when I started going to these Protestant prayer groups, I saw music, I saw fellowship, I saw Bible reading, I saw good sermons. So it immediately clicked for me. Whatever I thought was lacking in my Catholic faith was all given in the Protestant faith. So I immediately embraced it and I started reading the Bible. And when you read the Bible, of course, the word has an effect on you and you start obeying it and your life starts changing. So I had this unbelievable transformation. And I was like, those 4 years, I would still say were the best 4 years of my life as a Protestant.
So you were on fire. You were surrounded. You said community, so you had other people that were on fire.
Yes.
Were some of those people from Catholic backgrounds as well?
Absolutely not. All my friends were Protestants. So they all were Pentecostals, like, the Assemblies of God. There is a denomination very prominent in India. So they were very charismatic in the way they worshiped God and the way, they were full of zeal and passion. Like every Saturday, Sunday, we were, doing something in and around the college campus or reaching out to our friends. It was just, we were lit on fire. And as a Catholic, for me, this was just unbelievable that, some young people being on fire for God, which I did not see, even though I studied in a very well-known Catholic school back in India.
Got it. So how long? 4 years, best Protestant years.
Yeah.
Continue out of college where you're just on fire, reading the Bible. And I'm curious, how long was that period of time out of college before, I'm assuming, something happened that spoke to you about the Catholic faith?
So 4 years is the normal duration in India for us to complete the engineering course. So after 4 years, I came back to my hometown and I was looking for opportunities to play because I was a musician. I was going to different Protestant churches and asking them for an opportunity to play. And as you know, Protestants are much more talented when it comes to the field of music. Like you can hardly get opportunity to play. So then I was going around, like, I come from a city called Chennai. I was even going to the outskirts of the city to Protestant churches to just get an opportunity to play for their worship sessions and be part of that church. But it just so happened there were so many people already there in those churches. And then eventually it so happened that I had, my Catholic parish was looking for a choir leader, somebody to play the keyboard. And my sister came and told me that father is looking for a musician. Why don't you just come and play, because you're looking anyway to play. So that's how kind of my reversion started. Like I started taking care of the choir in the Catholic church. And then I became part of a charismatic Catholic group called Jesus Youth, which is like, I don't know the comparison to like the focus group that is there in America, like really engaging the youngsters. So I was part of the Jesus Youth group. So my first point of real experience happened when I was playing for an adoration for a retreat, and there were around 300 to 400 people, and I was on stage with the singer and I was playing, and all these people adoring God and the Blessed Sacrament. And something happened at that moment where I had the supernatural experience and I knew that Jesus was present in the Blessed Sacrament. But then it just died out. That experience died out. And after that, I just lost my faith. Even though I was on fire, I kind of embraced the Catholic faith to a certain extent. I just completely lost the faith, and I was going to do my higher studies, my management studies, and we were put in the hostel where we are all left alone with a computer, high-speed internet connection, and you are left to yourself. And for me, since I already had this weakness with pornography, all I did for those 2 years of my management studies was just, watch pornography in my room. And my faith, my, understanding of God, what God wanted to do through me, all that, went outside of the window. And for around 6 years, I was just living a zombie kind of a life until it so happened that God, suddenly kind of, sent me a rescue plan. So my journey was, I was a born Catholic. I became a Protestant and then had these, reversions to the Catholic faith, which did not sustain until, I started, something very important happened. And then that's how that you want me to share what that also, Eddie, or you want me to ask
In
a
a
question
second,
before that?
yeah. I'm curious about the years. You said, okay, you're at home or in this, you have a room. You said hostel?
Hostel, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And you said you already had an issue with pornography. Does that same related to just teenage years, trouble coping with different things, or what? When did that kind of start? And did it go away for a period when you were on fire in college?
Yes. So why I said I already had an issue with pornography was like when you grow up in a broken family or a troubled family, the lack of love that you are not receiving from your parents, you start looking for that kind of love or pleasure from something else. And since I studied in a boys' school, it just became an eventuality that I was looking for those kind of affirmations and pleasure in the internet. And so from my ninth standard to my 12th standard, I knew that this was becoming a big weakness and a kind of an addiction. But all that left me in those 4 years of my engineering studies because I was so focused on what God wanted me to do and what I can do for God. Those 4 years, I was, clean, I would say, very sober. I didn't even allow even the slightest of the lustful thoughts to enter my mind. But after coming back to my hometown and, doing this management studies, I did not have that, sense of fellowship and community because everybody was, career oriented. They all wanted to, get the best job, best high paying job. So that was the focus. So I was just left all alone without any friendship. And then immediately, my immediate recourse was to, pornography.
Yeah, you nailed it. Isolation is the worst possible thing if you struggle with that. Okay. I just wanted to get clarity on that.
Sure.
The rescue plan. What was this rescue plan? And you said that was 6 years of, tell me, you said something about 6 years. I apologize.
So I finished my management studies and then I got placed in a multinational company. So I'm counting those 2 years of my management studies and 4 years of me working in the corporate environment. So those were the 6 years where I was really losing it. And the last 2 years of those 6 years was just incredibly bad because I was posted in a different city in India. And I was living alone with no family, no friends, no relatives. And it just, pornography became the only friend that I had. And at that point in time, I was not only addicted to pornography, I would even say that I was clinically addicted. I just could not live without it. And then I had this some kind of affliction take over me. Like I always was afraid that I was going to die. I can't just explain the affliction, but that affliction was very, very strong. I was, paranoid. I was like, panicking every moment in my life. And the third thing was I was depressed because nothing was happening good in my life because I was not happy with my job, not happy with myself. I just did not know what I was doing with my life. So just imagine for us to have even one of those things, it's unbearable for a human being. If you're depressed, you already feel so much of pain. For me, it was not only depression, it was addiction and some kind of evil affliction. So I was in the darkest place in my life when God sent the rescue plan for me. So yeah, it was horrible.
One more thing before the rescue plan.
Yeah.
Where was religion? You said you just lost the faith. Did you pray ever, or were you just shut down completely? Did you believe in God, but you didn't want to interact with God because you felt shame, or how did you feel during that period?
I've always never understood, like when the Catholic Church teaches us that when we commit a mortal sin, we cut off from God completely, not because God wants to cut us off from Him, but we are saying a definite no to God. So when we are constantly sustaining in a state of mortal sin, that's what happens. Like even though you are apparently going for mass, apparently playing for the choir, apparently engaging with all the Christians, but inside of your heart you're still detached and you're unconsciously saying no to God. So I would say I was going for mass, I was playing for the choir, but that inner transformation or the inner connection was absolutely missing. I did not know who the God I was preaching. I just was completely oblivious.
Wow. Yeah. That well said. Well said. Okay. So what was this rescue plan? And I'm sure it's very vivid for you.
Yes, absolutely. So because I was addicted to pornography, I was not effective in my job. So my the job the company I was working for immediately asked me to leave. So they fired me, and I came back to my hometown, depressed, afflicted, and addicted. And at that time in Chennai, there was this heavy cyclone, and the whole city was flooded, and nobody could leave their home because it was incessantly raining. And so when you're again locked into this four walls of your house, everything becomes magnified because you're not having any other human connection. So I was just on the verge of almost giving up. Like I would not say I went to the point of committing suicide, but I was just right there, very close to that kind of a situation. So I asked one of my friends if I could go and stay in some work as a volunteer somewhere, just to kind of get my mind away from whatever is happening in my life. So he suggested that there was an HIV care home run for children. Like, these children were affected not because of their mistake, but the parents had HIV and it's kind of transferred to them. So the Catholic fathers, part of the Chameleon congregation, were running this HIV care home for children. So I went there just as a volunteer to help those children with English, business studies, and teach them music. So I went to this house, and that is where I, again found my humanity, because, St. Pope John Paul II says, you increase in the measure that you give it away. A lot of times we think that when we are in difficult situations, that God needs to send somebody to help us. But, as we see in the story of Elijah and the woman who was almost going to commit suicide with her son, Elijah did not sympathize with the women and said, oh, I feel so sorry for you, you're going to commit suicide. No, Elijah asked her to bring, bread for him and a cup of water. So even at the, deepest and darkest moment of your life, God's rescue mission is in asking you to give, to stop thinking about yourself. You be a blessing to someone else. And in that process of you being a blessing is how you get blessed. So when I went to this HIV care home, I am looking for fathers and, other volunteers to come and sympathize with me. Oh, you're so sad. You look so dull. You are, always, have this long face. What happened? I wanted somebody to come and ask me. But eventually it so happened that I am going and asking these children what I can do for them. Like, just imagine, God kind of, created this contrast, that these children, for no mistake of their own, they are, given this, lifelong disease which they have to live with. And on the other hand, I'm given all the blessings in my life, and I'm constantly complaining and, falling into this well of self-pity. Get out and go be a blessing to someone else. That is the message that I strongly received from God. And it was unbelievable that in the process of giving is how God blessed me. It just happened, for me, I say for a blink of an eye, but it took 1 year for me to, get out of this, self-pity well. And slowly, first I started teaching them music, then I started teaching them English, then business. And over a period of time, Father saw my commitment, and he said, every evening we have this prayer and the children say the rosary. And he said, after the rosary, you just give a very short reflection about a particular saint. Okay, take any saint and tell them about their life story, or one thing that you like about the saint, you tell them to these children. So that's how I started YouTubing for videos on saints. And that's how I came across Bishop Barron's video. And then it's just, from there, it's just history. I just started feasting on Bishop Barron's videos, like one after the other, and slowly it led me to my vocation.
Oh my gosh. What year was that you started?
2016.
Unbelievable. I absolutely love that story so much. So how long were you volunteering? How
1 year.
That was 1 full year. Okay. Got it. So as you're healing, as you're learning more about the faith, when do you remember going back? Because you talked about that experience with adoration. When did that kind of come full circle? Do you remember kind of returning to the church and realizing, whoa, that was so real. Why did I leave it alone for so long? Why did I leave him alone for so long? Did you have a moment like that?
So since this center for HIV care, this HIV care home was run by Catholic priest, I was still attending everyday mass, and in the evening I was spending time with the children in the Blessed Sacrament. For me, the transformation happened more intellectually. More I started watching Bishop Barron's videos, all the questions that I had before about the Catholic faith, but never took the effort to understand, was slowly, I was finding answers for those questions through Bishop Barron's videos. So it created more and more curiosity for me. And every time I had a question, there was always an answer. Like, the church has been there for 2000 years. So I'm not having a question which nobody has asked in the last 2000 years. So the church has an answer. At least it will give you a clear answer, or it will say it doesn't know. So for me, it was such an satisfaction intellectually that the church could answer all my doubts and clarify everything that I had to know about the church and God. So that intellectual satisfaction, invariably drew me to the sacramental life of the church. For a lot of people, it is the other way around. Like they experience the Holy Mass, they come for adoration, and then they slowly start to understand the teachings and the dogmas and the doctrines of the church. For me, it was exactly the opposite. It is through the intellectual satisfaction that I received from people like Bishop Barron and many others that I start, going back to the sacraments of the church.
Beautiful. You say many others. Do you remember some of the other people that were important, and was it very much the same? What Bishop Barron was offering was found on other channels? I'm just curious.
So for me, it was like, 90%, I would say it was just Bishop Barron. And then at that was the time that, Ascension Presence were slowly putting out videos like with Jason Everett, with Matt Fradd, and, people like that. But after that 1 year of my, stint in that HIV care home, then a lot of people like Matt Fradd, Trent Horn, Jason Everett, they just, opened up different doors for me about the Catholic faith, because G.K. Chesterton says that there are 1,000 doors to the Catholic faith. You choose the door that you want to enter in. It could be music, it could be some, intellectual longing that you have. It could be the sacraments, it could be anything, but you choose the door. The church has 1,000 doors. You choose to enter. So for me, all these doors were opening, and it was just an unbelievable experience for me.
No, it sounds like it, clearly. So the pornography ended completely, because what was that happening while you were so intellectually engaged with this content? Because I've heard that as well. When you have a pursuit and you've put your whole self into that, so many other things will just die. Similar to what you were saying in college.
Absolutely.
You were just so focused. Yeah.
Like, the American philosopher Mark Twain said, the two most important days in your life are the day when you're born and the day you find out why. And St. Catherine of Siena said, be who God meant you to be, and you'll set the world on fire. And we also see from the scriptures that resist the devil and it will flee. So for me, this idea that everybody born into this world has a God-given purpose. That is the first thing I understood from, Bishop Barron. And the second thing is he gave me this, sense of liberation by saying this: your life is not about yourself. Stop thinking about yourself. Let go of the ego drama and embrace the theodrama. And the final thing was, like, you increase in the measure that you give it away. I made these three things the pillars of my life. So once you say yes to your vocation and you start going on the mission that God wants you to go on, all other, sin or the negativity, everything leaves you, and God forms and heals you in the mission that he has called you for. So I wouldn't say like I overcame pornography, then God gave me the vocation. It is through me saying yes to the calling that God gave me. It is through that God healed me of my pornography, of my narcissistic tendencies, everything. He just formed me through my yes to him.
So good, Joseph. I love it. You're not on fire at all. I can tell. It's just you're so chill. No. My other question is related to, what about the old Protestant friends or Protestants that happen to be in the area? Were you overzealous? Did you have that period that I've spoken to? I've had a lot of conversations with people saying they came across very, let's just say, overzealous. We'll keep it.
Yes, I was. I was overzealous when I was a Protestant, like during my 4 years of college. And once suddenly you find this amazing treasure that you find in the Catholic faith, then you start becoming overzealous and you start, calling them out, being a little rude to them, uncharitable to them. So I went through that process, and the good thing was I had a spiritual director who was constantly, guiding me and correcting me, and was saying, talking about the healthy ways in which we can evangelize, whether it's to Catholics or to our Protestant friends.
Who was saying this? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
My spiritual director.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So I was at fault by, at being overzealous, like being very judgmental, very critical, very rude, uncharitable. But that was the phase that I had to go through. And now I feel I'm a little better. I wouldn't say I'm perfect, but I'm a little better in, helping people understand the Catholic teaching and the arguments that the Catholic Church has to put forward with respect to any topic. And I'm able to do it in a more charitable way. And at the same time, I would say the 6 years of experience has, helped me develop a kind of a buffalo skin, a thick skin. So, even if they come back at me with, personal, comments, it doesn't affect me. So it's, God has formed me both ways, I think.
No, it's a great point. I think that, personal attacks. You just have to be aware that that happens. That's typical. That's going to happen. And if you like I'm trying to do for so many people, is just pray for those souls that are really angry and they don't know how to, they don't have rebuttals at all. In fact, they would say that their rebuttal is just attacking character.
Yes.
But I think it's
That's a
important to know
fallacy.
that and to just, yeah, exactly. And just remember to pray for a lot of people that are angry at what they think the church is. So on that topic, how do you like to address misconceptions? What's your approach, whether it's an apologetic approach immediately or you get into some type of dialogue first? How do you like to approach it?
So with respect to my social media mission of, putting out apologetic work in the channel, I try to make logical argumentation and say, okay, this is what Protestants say, and this is what the Catholic Church says. And then, I allow them to make their decision and judgment based on that topic. But if I'm dealing with a Protestant on a personal level, then I don't immediately engage into these logical argumentation. I just try to, develop some kind of a friendship and relationship with them, and then slowly have these, respectful conversations with them. And I also see if they are someone who is logically, intellectually honest. In order, are they really in the pursuit of truth, or they just want to, spew like, give out all the talking points that they've heard their pastors and their, friends say about the Catholic Church. So then, it's not fruitful for either of us. So then I leave the friendship at what it is, and then, carry on with the mission that I have.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
What are you seeing out on YouTube, out on social media that gives you hope? What gives you optimism about what's happening in the church right now?
I feel, as I was growing up, I had these so many questions that I had about the Catholic faith, not just about the doctrine and the dogmas, but also, how the faith is practiced. I had so many questions, but I had nobody who could, intellectually answer. And some fathers would answer to a certain extent, but then once you, press them more deeper and deeper, they get, frustrated. They get, oh, forget it. I can't answer anymore. But, today I find there are so many people who have these long conversations about even a very not that important of a topic in terms of the faith, but you get so much of clarity and understanding, and you try to arrive at those topics in so many different levels. It just really helps you understand how rich the Catholic faith is. And as I said, the Catholic Church is not facing these kind of questions, or whatever, the culture has to throw at the Catholic Church. It's not facing for the first time. For last 2000 years, the church has been battling all these things. It has just taken different shapes today, and the wisdom and the knowledge is already there. It just needs some people who are called to take that wisdom and just, present it to people. And I feel a lot of people are doing that amazingly well.
No, it's great. Great answer. Why don't you talk a little bit about what do you focus on your channel? JD Catholic Engage, right?
Yes.
That's right. Okay. I'll make sure I leave the link in there. But what do you like to focus on? What do you think is important?
So for me, my first priority is to engage the ex-Catholics who have left the Catholic Church and Catholic faith for whatever reason it is, and joined any other denomination other than the Catholic Church. So I just want them to understand and know what the Catholic Church really stands for. Like, I think it was Bishop Fulton Sheen who said, there are a lot of people, like there are thousands of people who misunderstand the church and leave the church, but there are hardly 100 people who have actually understood what the Catholic Church stands for and have left the church. So I think the misperceptions and the assumptions that people have is not exactly right. And I think for me to reach out to them and give the right understanding of the Catholic faith, I feel that is my first priority. And in doing so, I try to engage our Protestant friends, atheists, and people of other religion, especially since I come from a Hindu-dominated country. The understanding of life, God, universe, it's all completely on the other spectrum. Like, if the Catholic Church is this side, they're all on the other side. So because they worship nature, they worship animals, like back in India. Yeah. And we worship only the creator. We don't worship the creation. So that itself is a big, what to say, a thing to overcome. Like when you're growing up, even though you're growing up as a Catholic, when you're growing up with so many Hindu friends, you tend to, kind of imbibe these understandings unconsciously, and it starts creeping into the way you think about life and how you view God. So for me, that was also a battle because I grew up in a non-Christian country. To overcome those hurdles of other religious understanding was also a battle for me.
Okay, can you expound upon that just a little bit? What was it? It's almost like it's such a paradigm shift that
Yes,
it
that was the word
can't
I was looking for.
possibly be
Yeah.
right. Is that
Yeah.
how you
So
view it?
one of the things, like, in Hindu religion, people just go in search of God. Like man is in search of God. They go do these different kinds of things. They have to do this puja. They have to go give this offering, go do this and that. So it's always about man in search of God. But when I embraced the Catholic faith, I understood God is the one who's in search of us. Our job is to allow him to enter our life and do what he wants to do in our life. So for me, that was a big paradigm shift. I was also living like how an Hindu person would do. Like I was constantly going and doing these small things, thinking that I am in search of God. But when I read the gospel, the parable of the lost sheep, it is God who comes in search of that one lost sheep. It's not that lost sheep is going in search of the shepherd, right? So for me, that was a big paradigm shift. And then it was easy for me to embrace the God that Christianity is proposing. I felt so secure that God is the one who's in search of me.
That is so good, and that's why the incarnation is so massive
Yeah.
in understanding Christianity, right?
Yes, absolutely.
He's going to, and not to mention the Holy Eucharist. Once you understand what he does to come to us, then all these things start to tie together. That's great. What do you think we need to do better as Catholics in this day and age? What do we need to do better, whether it's in witnessing, whether it's in defending the faith charitably? What do we need to focus on?
So I had this idea of visiting one parish every Sunday, like different parish I would go to for attending Sunday Mass. And I've been doing that for the past 6 to 7 months since I've moved to Sydney, Australia. One of the things that I observe is people who come for the Holy Mass, they attend the Holy Mass, all that is fine. But once they come out, they all, there is the sense of fellowship and belonging to a certain parish or a community is something very lacking. But if you go to a Protestant service, you will see people all coming out. Everybody is reaching out to everyone. Everybody's talking to everybody. At least they make the effort. Like, last week I went to a church. It's a very small church. And there was, just 7 to 8 families. And they knew that I was there and 2 other new people were there in the parish. But they just stuck to themselves. They were talking among themselves. They didn't even see that there was a new person whom they can be welcoming or reach out to. So I feel that sense of fellowship is very important because the devil always tries to isolate, as you said in the beginning of the interview. That's how the devil hunts. The first thing the devil does is it cuts off all human relationship and eventually your relationship with God. And then only then the devil hunts you down, like how a lion would hunt a herd of buffaloes. So I feel the sense of community and fellowship, friendship is very, very important for us. And I think as Catholics, we can do that a little more better.
That's great. Great. Yeah, I think of the people that have told me it's just me and Jesus, and that scares me for a number of reasons. When
Yes.
they'll say it's outside of the 4 walls. That's the body of Christ. That's where community is. That's where we're supposed to be edifying each other, praying for each other. So yeah, that just sounds very much like, leave me alone. I've got it. And that's quite scary. So, okay, Joseph, that was hard hitting. Absolutely love it. Is there anything else you think you want to cover that we did not cover?
Yes. So the one thing, today's world, a lot of people are focusing overcoming the weaknesses, the challenges, and the sinful inclinations that they have in their life. So from my experience as a person who was addicted to pornography, the one thing I would say is our life is not all focused on staying out of jail. Our life is to fulfill God's purpose. So once we say yes to our occasion and calling, the rest of the things will be taken care of. Like the Catholic Church teaches that evil is the privation of good. It's only when the good is not there that the evil starts getting into and filling that vacuum. So I would say if you really want to overcome your weaknesses, your challenges, your sin, sit before the Blessed Sacrament, discern what your calling and vocation is, and say yes to it, and you will start seeing healing and your life being transforming. And Catherine of Siena says, be who God you meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire. You will set the world on fire when there is fire inside you, and that fire will heal you of all your iniquities.
So good, Joseph. Yeah. So you step outside of yourself. Instead of focusing inwardly on the sin, how you keep failing, get yourself off of yourself and get out there, right?
Yes. And I'm not saying, you should not focus on how to overcome your weaknesses, but the first step is to understand what your calling and vocation is. That is the foundation on which you do anything else.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, because that's where the fire is. If you are not aware of a calling and pursuit of good, then you're always getting beaten down. And that's what a lot of people portray Catholics. Oh, I'm not good enough and I have to earn everything. And yet you're flipping it completely to say, find out why you're on this earth, go after that. It sounds so, I don't know, cliche even, but what a reminder that is for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people that are tuning in. So I think we're going to end it there, if you're okay with that.
Joseph, absolutely, Eddie. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, God bless you and your ministry. Lot of lessons in what you just shared, and I'm incredibly humbled by that story. And thank you for being transparent about every aspect of it. Really,
thank you, Eddie. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Everyone, please share. As I say, please subscribe, hit the bell, do all the things that would help this channel, Joseph's channel, continue to grow and reach people that are confused, reach people that clearly have potentially endless questions. But let's just pray for everyone out there and keep doing what we're doing. And I encourage you, based on what Joseph just said, to meet with a spiritual director, pray before the Blessed Sacrament, find out what you're called to do. Until next time, take care and God bless. Bye.